Welcome back to the Healthy with Heartland Podcast. My name is Justin. I am your host, also joined with your favorite co-hosts and creative directors, Simon and Shannon. How are you feeling today?
Doing wonderful. Today is going to be a good day.
Another healthy day with Heartland.
As always.
And the...
it's a beautiful, healthy day at Heartland.
Right? Yeah, sure
Happy
is.
Cinco De Mayo.
Yep.
Oh, tricky. So we've got a great topic today for you. But before we surprise you with what that topic is, we are going to get into the announcements.
All right. Heartland Family, couple quick announcements for you. If you are ready to restock from home without the hassle, we have you covered this month. So in May, it's your choice. You can choose 4 cobia burgers, 4 salmon burgers, or 4 of our premium beef steak burgers, along with your order absolutely for free. So make sure to take advantage of that and try something new on your next reorder. And with that, guys, let's get into today's podcast.
Another short and sweet.
Well, I forgot what the topic is because, just had my first margarita.
Today we're going to talk about some of the surprising things that your genes can say about you.
Not your Wranglers, right?
Not the Levi's. Your genes, Genes. So yeah. A couple of things we want to just talk about. We read an article which was pretty interesting, which talked about some of the more surprising things that your genes can say about you. Of course, we talk a lot about diet, nutrition, health, and wellness here on this podcast. So, of course, we know that your genetics does play a huge role in health and wellness. But we're going to talk about some of the more fun aspects of your genes. So the first one is a little bit funny, but I guess it's called the sunlight sneeze. So there's something called the photic sneeze reflex, and it seems to happen in about a quarter of the population. So if one parent is a quote unquote sun sneezer, their child has a 50% chance of being one as well. So that was the first fun fact, and I wasn't even aware that was a thing. So
what does that mean? Like the sun makes you sneeze?
Yeah, I guess there's something that's called a photic sneeze, and I guess some people are more predisposed to having that effect. Scientists are not sure exactly what causes it, but it's apparently something that's real that's happening.
So from the Googles, it says that bright flashes of light that trigger your optical nerve can accidentally stimulate the trigeminal nerve.
Oh.
Trigeminal nerve, sorry.
Okay.
So from that...
So is that different than when you feel a sneeze coming on, you look at the light, it makes you sneeze?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I think that's...
I don't know if that works for you, but that works for me. Every time I got to sneeze, I just look at the lights and then bam.
Yeah. It just goes away.
Maybe that's a trick.
It
helps it to happen.
Oh, yeah. So I think that's exactly what they're saying, because your body reads the sensation as though something is irritating your nose. So that's how bright light can make you sneeze. So that's it. That's what it is right there.
It's typically annoying when you have that sneeze coming on and then you can't get to it. So that's maybe an interesting tip.
Oh yeah.
If that's one thing
that
you
happens.
Experience.
When you're literally you're trying to sneeze and you can't, and then it just goes away. You're like, you don't get that closure.
Exactly. Okay, so the next one.
Oh, but Shin, let's back up. So
yeah,
let's talk about for people that aren't really that don't know what are genes and how does this basically relate? How do we transition this into the conversation that we're talking about?
Yeah, genes are molecules.
Basically it's DNA, right?
Yeah, it's DNA. It's mostly the same for everybody, but of course there's unique traits for each individual person. A small percentage of your genes are yours alone, so it's what makes you personally unique. It's what makes you special and different from other people. So it also has to do with the way that your body is typically going to work and react to certain things. Things you're predisposed to, risks, health. We talked about health and, diseases, things like that, but it's generally the building blocks of your DNA.
Right. So molecules of information, essentially, right? So things like your eye color, your hair color.
Yep. All of that.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I wonder how that relates to the cells,
What do you mean?
Well, because your genes, they don't change, right? Your genes are your genes.
Oh, well, that was one thing we did read in there. So your genes can technically change. Like they talk, I guess that's something we're going to get into, right? I don't want to spoil it.
Good.
But I guess one of the things they said in the conversation that I guess even specifically males, as they kind of, go on, if they're heavy drinkers or, they have any kind of other sort of things that they're doing, they can change their genes and even pass on those negative aspects to the genes onto their offspring, like onto their kids, essentially.
Yeah, specifically, they were referencing, like, obviously preconception and during the pregnancy, it's very important, the health of the mother, right? But also they were talking about the fact that if, regardless of the genes of the father, if for some reason they had an unhealthy stent or gained weight or were, like Simon mentioned, participating in certain extracurricular activities which affected them negatively, that could in fact be passed on to the offspring, even if it didn't run in their previous set of genes. So that was something interesting as well.
Yeah, because I know the body replaces every cell every 84 days. Right. It's like your trillions and trillions of cells. Technically, you're a new person every 84 days.
Yeah, constantly turning over and building new cells.
Brand new.
All right, so the next one, first one, super interesting. Next one, okay, so earwax, color, consistency, and smell. It's genetic. It's gross. We'll just touch on it, but
it's actually really interesting.
It's very interesting. So those are things that are passed on through your genes.
Because I'm just thinking now, like, have you ever smelled your earwax?
Definitely haven't, but I guess, it's one of those things.
I guess it's, so I guess.
Those commercials for the Navage,
Mm-hmm.
Oh, like, and they tell you how you shouldn't put the, are you talking about like the tools to get the earwax out of your ear?
Well, like, I guess you're not supposed to use a Q-tip, but if you use this thing that cleans your ear out, apparently, like, here, like at a whole nother level, like, none of us are really walking around hearing at our full capacity, apparently. I don't know if any of this is true, so don't hold me to that.
I could believe it. I mean, there's so many techniques to try to clear, like, earwax. Like you said, obviously there's Q-tips and things like that. They have, like, ear candling. I don't know if you guys have heard of that.
Yeah, but I also heard that you weren't necessarily supposed to do that either.
Yeah, well, that's what has kind of come out. There's been, science, I guess, and facts and research that have come out that said that it can potentially be detrimental.
Yeah.
So that's why I guess they've come up with some tools that can
just
help you
jam it further in there.
Yeah, exactly. Some more tools to help you easily remove that versus, stick it in there further.
And there's so many different, like, remedies, that people use. Like, I know back in the day, they used to say, like, just like the ear candle, even if you did like a cigarette or something, like, to get a earache out, people were doing things like that. Now, I don't know if that was like
in the olden days.
Yeah.
I think it's because, like, I know when they do the ear candle, it, like, when they light the flame, it creates sort of like a vortex inside of the candle. And that is almost like a vacuum effect. And so it'll like suck out the wax and the stuff that's inside the ear. Yeah. So it's very interesting.
Same concept, yeah.
But I've never personally participated in it, but
I have.
You have?
Yeah, one of the ear like the
candles.
Not cigarette, but like the little candles. Yeah, I've done that before.
Oh, wow.
And you do take out a lot of your earwax and stuff like that. And I mean, you can hear better, but I also think I read that like some of that earwax is good. You don't want to take all of it out. But like, some of it is actually supposed to be in your ear and actually creates, like, I think lubrication or something for your actual eardrum or whatnot. So
in all of the orifices, same thing with like the nose, and we have like little hairs and cilia and villi and things like that are going to help to filter things that are obviously coming in and out. So I'm sure it has something to do with that.
Interesting. Back to the
So should we not trim our nose hairs? Question.
I don't know. I mean,
I would go with yes, because I'm culprit of that, because I feel like if I didn't, I would be one of those cavemen looking type guys that just has,
I'm a fan of the manscaping. Got to keep it clean and tight.
Right.
All right. So the next one is not uncommon. I'm sure people are familiar with it, but perfect pitch is another one of those things. So if you can sing, if you can hold a pitch, that is 100% genetic.
Yep, not me. Sorry, Mom. Dad. So. You didn't give me the gift of gab. I couldn't do it.
The thing is, too, people do train, and you can train, to learn the notes and things like that. But
technically, from what you're saying, even if you could train, you're not as well off as somebody with the genetics to be able to.
It's just a genetic
sing perfect pitch
gift. Not sure.
Yeah, you can train it to a point.
Right. Yes. And then after that, it's, I guess, just pure raw genetic talent.
God-given, right?
Kind of like dunking on a basketball hoop.
Right. You can practice all you want, but, it's either happening or it's not happening.
Trampolines, they're great. Or the ones in the pool. That's what I'll do.
Nice.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So the next one, and I guess we could each give our own personal opinion or tidbit on this. So whether you are a night owl or an early bird, so the basis of your circadian rhythm is also genetic. So it's given to you. So if you like, if you stay up late or if you have a hard time getting up early in the morning, like I do, that's genetic.
Yep. And Mother's Day is coming up. So happy Mother's Day, Mom.
Yes.
Because I know my mom is one of those people that, military-wise, I guess it was a requirement. So she's one of those early risers and get up early. And I guess that's kind of where I get that from, too. My dad's same way. But, yeah, happy Mother's Day, by the way.
But have you gone through phases of your life where that's different?
100%, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because when I was younger, my parents were like, oh, my gosh, you wake up at like 4 or like 5 in the morning. Like on the weekends, I'd be up 6 a.m. cartoons. They'd have to be like, we'll set you up here. You can
For me,
entertain yourself.
It was like kind of like a hills kind of like at first being young. I used to do the same thing, wake up super early, watch the cartoons. Then all of a sudden you hit your teenage years and it was like.
You need to sleep.
I was like a rock. It was like I didn't want to get up to kind of go to school. It was like a hectic kind of thing to get me to go.
Oh, yeah.
Then after high school, I would even say after college, then it's like one of those things now where it's like, oh yeah, I have to. Like even on the weekends, it's just like a norm, like you said, the circadian rhythm. It's just a normal thing for me to wake up at that certain time, just because creature of habit. Just it doesn't feel right if I sleep in or stay in. Like it gives me like a weird sort of I don't know.
What about for you, Justin?
It's just the older I get, the earlier I wake up. It's an interesting thing. Like even if I'm out late. Like late night hockey with the boys, out in the parking lot till 1 a.m., whatever, after we play. I mean, I'll still be up at the latest, 7:30. Like, There's just a 0% chance I'm sleeping longer than that. Most days it's going to be around 6-ish, give or take. But that's just a natural wake up for me now. And I don't know. It's weird. The older I get, the earlier I go to bed and the earlier I get up.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same here. Oh, what about, I wonder, you watching Jerry, I guess, is he the same way?
Oh, yeah. He gets up real early, too.
Yeah. There's the genes, right?
But I wasn't like that, though, for a long time. Like high school, college. I'd sleep till 10 a.m., 11 a.m.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that I don't know what changed. But.
Yeah, and I was, that's what I was going to ask. I wonder what it is about, those years of, your teenage years going through puberty or whatnot, like what it does as far as, wanting to sleep or needing sleep or anything like that.
Yeah.
I think it was the conditioning of staying out late, being young, going to the bar till 2 a.m. or something like that. Like that ain't going to happen. Even if I tried to, staying out till midnight would be a stretch for me right now.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, I feel like, same here. All right. So next one we got is obviously hair color is, genetic, but gray hair is genetic. Balding is genetic. Curly hair is genetic, and unibrows are genetic.
Boom. So you can blame it on your parents.
So those are all things that have to do with your genes. So, and that was a wide array too. I was like, okay, we went from the color of the hair to the style of the hair to the unibrow, the facial hair.
I'm sure parents are wondering which parent is passing off those either dominant or recessive genes that, come with the hair color or the grayness in the beards, stuff like that. I'd like to know.
I got grays coming in now.
Yeah.
Pretty salt and peppery through here, actually.
Yeah.
It's the new, what do they say? 40 is the new 20.
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Yeah,
it was a little stretch there. All right. So the next one we touched on, it was talking specifically about the father's influence. So it talked about the women's age, diet, weight, other habits affect the baby's health, of course. But as men get older, if they gain a lot of weight, if they become heavy drinkers, their genes can change. And at that point, if passed down, it may change the genes of their kids or even their grandkids, and could cause, conditions, diabetes, cancer, etc. So it's a possibility, but I think all it's demonstrating is that, genes are coming from both parents. So it's both equally important that they be, healthy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
So how come this is just on the father's influence? What about the mother's influence?
Well, it mentioned that as well. It talked about how everyone knows the importance of, the mother's health, obviously, while carrying a child.
But right.
It was specifically referencing when and where the influence of the father in the genes comes into play.
Yep. See, that's what's so interesting to me, right? It's like, you could be in a pretty bad place and then do 84 days of really healthy, dialed in habits, no drinking, eating perfectly, hormones regulated, and then boom, you're like, okay, let's have the kid, right? And then you then you get pregnant, and then you have another like perfectly healthy. It's like, does any of the stuff that happened before that matter because you replaced all your cells and now you're a new person? I don't know. It's just a weird thought.
That's a good point, though, because it is, you know what I mean? If you think about it, it is super interesting. Like, if you did do something like that where, maybe had a super unhealthy past and then...
Like a 6-month ramp up prior to that. I mean, yeah, I don't see
why
not.
Yeah, I don't see how that could be healthy, though, for the person that's doing that. You know what I mean? Like, if you had these... Unless you were keeping up
unless
you
were making a lifestyle change, right?
That's what I mean, yeah. Like, if you all of a sudden, after you had your kids, and then you just were like, I'm going to go back now.
Yeah. No.
I don't know how that would be super healthy for you. For your kids, you're probably giving off the right kind of, the genes and whatnot. But as far as like, as personally, as, for each person individually, I don't know if that's a super healthy thing. But
yeah,
it's super interesting that, that can actually even happen.
Yeah.
Because you hear so many people like, as far as like, every single day, like Justin's saying, like you could basically recreate yourself. So you're not, a lot of people won't even try to do certain things because they're like, it's just me. And I actually had, that's a personal mindset thoughts. Like before, being a pretty heavy set kid, I just thought, hey, my family were big boned. Like you just accept it. You're just like, we're just big. But then you start to like do a little bit of research and find out, hey, well, that could also be the things they're eating. That could also just be, of course, some of it is poor genetics. But we're going to get into essentially weight in your genes, right?
Yeah. Yeah, actually, that's the next one. So let me pull it up. Yeah, weight in your genes. So what you eat, how much exercise, that's not necessarily everything when it comes to
it's not the whole
your
story.
Physical makeup. Yeah, it's, it's so many more things. And we talk about that a lot, that it's not just one meal. It's not just like one diet. It's a combination of what we're talking about here, your genetics and kind of how you're set up. And then again, how you're living your everyday lifestyle or the lifestyle that you lead, and what your ultimate goal is, of course. But scientists have found that some people's genes nudge them towards a higher than healthy weight. And what I kind of wanted to talk about at the end of this list that they were giving was, if you like what your guys' opinion is on that. And if you think that, you're predisposed specifically to be like a certain weight or a certain body type. Cause like you just kind of claimed, and I feel similarly that I, grew up and I was always kind of like an overweight or a larger kid. And I'm also really tall, especially for a female. So, I just, kind of was in that same mindset. But it's interesting. And we could too talk about like body type, like ectomorph, endomorph. We could talk about the differences. Yeah. And you can transition from body type to body type, so I think that it's a combination of the genes like we talked about and what your lifestyle is and what your approach and what your goals are. And that it's not just specifically, you're not specifically just stuck to, your genes and your DNA. I mean, would you agree?
Well, I think that you have the genetic dispositions you have. Like you can't, like certain people are just built with a lot more muscle mass, and certain people are, those ectomorph, like if you're skinny, mesomorph, and you're just jacked. Right. And a lot of people want to use their natural body type kind of as an excuse for the way that they are. But the reality is that we all have a different struggle based off of our body type. So, for somebody who is really big boned and gains a lot of weight easily, it's easy for you to hold muscle mass. It's going to be more difficult for you to control your fat, and you're going to have to be more dialed in on diet. Whereas somebody that's naturally skinny like me, I have to fight tooth and nail for every ounce of muscle mass on my body. Right. So it's a different type of struggle, depending on what your predisposition is to your body type. So, I see every different type, and everybody's got a different thing they got to do. So whether it's hard for you to gain weight or hard for you to keep the weight off, just understand that here's my battle and you have to win.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I think, I feel like your genes have a certain to a certain extent they are like you're built from them, right? And then I think that because we're seeing that even from the father's influence that you can change your genes and you can sort of alter the genetics. I feel like like even though let's say you're predisposed, because like I have the I'm predisposed to celiac, right? Now I still eat gluten and nothing. I don't know if nothing happening. Probably is something happening, right? But that's what it says in my blood report. It says, you have the celiac gene trait in your DNA or whatnot, right? So I think you can be predisposed to some of those things, but I also think that in terms of like working out or any of those things, like it comes down to how much effort you also want to put in. Like Justin said, you may have to work harder than other people to either put on weight or take off weight or build muscle or not build muscle.
Right.
But I feel like, to a certain extent, like when we mentioned the singing, you can train or, do things to your gene or, kind of help yourself out to kind of alter those genetic traits. Now, I mean, I'm not saying you're going to go out and start dunking a basketball if you do squats every day because, some people it's not going to happen. Right.
Yeah.
But, for the most part, I feel like you can train and you can do some of these things to alter your genetics and train to the certain point.
To that point though, you could also through lifestyle probably not turn on some genetic things that are negative that you're predisposed to, right?
True. Yep. Same. Yep. That's the same exact way. So like, if you're predisposed to celiac, you could already not be, eating gluten or something like that, just so that, it wouldn't carry you forward to all of a sudden you have that celiac disease, because just having the trait doesn't mean that you have the disease essentially. Right. But if I'm eating bread every day and I know I have the trait, it's obviously, you know what I mean?
Yeah. If you have a genetic predisposition and you're poking the bear, like, probably going to end up with that,
Right. Right.
Yeah. And too, like you talked about, like, if you're eating certain things like bread and stuff, but like the rest of your lifestyle, right? Like, are you getting good sleep? Like, are you drinking alcohol? Do you smoke? Those kind of things. Like all of those are factoring in with your genes as well to, ultimately how your body's faring.
Right.
So, all right. So we're kind of winding down here, and you touched on the next one. So gluten is another one of those things.
Gluten glitch.
Yeah. So about 40% of us might have or may have genes linked to celiac disease. So this is the disorder, if you guys are not familiar with it, that stops you from being able to digest gluten and causes inflammation in the intestines. And we definitely don't want inflammation because we know that inflammation leads to chronic illness. Only about 1% of the people with these genes may have symptoms for the disease. So you may not even know if you have, the trait in your genes for this. And scientists aren't really sure what makes the difference between, people, I guess, that what you were just describing, where you're aware that you have it because you're having a certain symptom or reaction, whereas some people are not even aware that they even have the trait. So,
well, I wasn't aware from something that I ate. I was aware because I did a blood test.
Well, that's what I mean.
I feel like
another thing that people can do is they could do testing, right? And test for those kind of things and see maybe where those issues lie, and that way you can set yourself up better for success.
Yeah, that's kind of become a staple kind of for us on the podcast and the mastermind, is really doing the testing, getting the data to be able to kind of find out and dial down. And then that was really Justin. That was you kind of just like, hey, like, you put us onto what was that? The app that we all now use.
Oh, Chronometer.
You know what I mean? We started dialing that down, and then we started looking at, the different sleep and all those kind of things. And then, now it's just like, it's like one of those things. Go do a blood test. Dave brought up the different tests that they do with like the Dutch and the stool test.
I just did those.
You did?
Oh,
Dave.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm waiting on my results. So I did the GI map and the Dutch test. So it's be really interesting. Maybe we should evaluate my results when they come in.
That would be awesome.
Yeah.
Because that's what, we're still, we're looking into it, and we're going to do it as well. Just so, because I think it's super intriguing first and foremost, and then second, it's like, it's important because, like Dave said, like he is a physical specimen, and to think that, he was doing something like eating a certain way, and then he talked about how he had some adversity there as well. I was amazed. I was like, oh man, like you think, and again, this is just normal human traits. You think from the outside when you see somebody that's jacked and they're great like physique and all that kind of thing, that they don't have there's nothing wrong with it. Their body is 100% optimal, and then they peel back the layers for you, and they're like, no, like there's things also that,
can improve.
Yeah, can improve and people deal with. So
absolutely.
Those testing and, the data is, I'm all for it now.
Yeah.
By the way, since we're talking about genes and genealogy, there's a test that Gary Brecka recommends that does a gene test on your body. Apparently there's 5 genes that cause any disease and issues. And when you take this test, he can literally map out your life backwards and say, okay, this is what you would die from. This is what you would be exposed to. And then you can change your lifestyle habits and certain things and take things naturally. And he can eliminate things like anxiety, like all kinds of things that people go and get prescribed medicines. Apparently through this gene testing, you can solve all those issues naturally.
That's awesome. I'm going to drop a bomb for that.
Yeah, wow. It's pretty cool.
That's the first time I'm hearing of things like that. And I think that's genius.
Biohacking.
Yeah, he was saying things like, because I listened to Gary speak he at that event in Miami I was at, and my mind was just blown away. He was talking about how, let's say depression, your lack of serotonin to the brain. Well, that goes up delivered from your gut health through the vagus nerve to your brain. He's like, okay, so we can fix depression by fixing your gut, by fixing this. And he's like, everything is not, let's take a magic pill to deliver a pharmaceutical pill to deliver serotonin to your brain when we can figure out how to get your body to do it naturally. Just because it's not doing it doesn't mean that your body's not capable of doing it.
Right.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Yep. Share this with somebody that, that needs this information. Cause I think that, a bunch of the things that you just said, Justin, is huge. Cause there's a lot of people that are, and I don't want to call them, for lack of a better term, they are excuses, right? They make excuses for, that sort of information. Like, and again, we're talking about the genes. I'm just predisposed to anxiety. I'm predisposed to these kind of things. And then, of course, they end up going through the traditional healthcare system. And like you said, taking a pill for it. And not a lot of people know that those pills have side effects to them. And sometimes they're even worse than the actual, issue that you have. And if you can take some of these tests and I feel like do it a natural, more holistic way, because that's kind of what it sounds like he's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's phenomenal. I feel like that probably should be the
future of medicine.
Yeah, the future of health and wellness of people, instead of going to these.
As it should be, right? I mean, we talk about how important like food is, and food being its own medicine. It's so integrative, and why we have food and the healthcare system so separate, and why nutrition is not more, intertwined throughout that.
Yeah,
it's questionable.
Yep. And not just nutrition, but it's everything.
I'm looking at my notes from Gary Brecka's talk, and 44% of the U.S. population is on an antidepressant.
That's depressing.
So apparently those SSRIs don't raise your serotonin level, and that's the problem. So treatment should be to raise serotonin. It's just very interesting. And that, serotonin's made in the gut and travels through the vagus nerve to the brain.
Yep.
And we talk about it all the time. Your gut is your second brain.
Absolutely.
You're not taking care of it.
Yeah. What are you telling me?
MTHFR is the gene that breaks and makes you suffer from depression. So you can turn it back on with what's called methylated vitamins.
Okay.
And the body converts that intake into the usable form. That's called methylation. So there's 5 genes that control methylation. So I was pretty on with what I was saying, but
nice.
Check out Gary Brecka. If this is something that you're dealing with, any type of depression, anxiety, I would definitely take his gene test and look into 10X Health.
Absolutely.
Take your health to the next level.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Maybe we could do a whole podcast just talking kind of about that topic. That's really awesome.
Yeah, he's big into Wim Hof and activating your cold shock proteins and
got it.
All that good stuff.
Very cool.
But this is cool too. The difference between passion and anger is oxygen.
That's so true. No, it's so true, because I always say, like, if you're angry, all you really need to do, and people think it's crazy, but you take those 10 deep breaths.
Take deep breaths.
You take 10 deep breaths, and you're able to kind of like regain yourself, because that's something I deal with too. I got, the temperament of, I don't know what doesn't have a good temperament. But I was trying to think of like an animal or something with a beast. I don't know.
Tasmanian devil.
Yeah. I don't know if they, I don't know the
random
yeah,
Looney Tunes here.
But anyway, you know, and that's one thing that I feel like, especially with the Wim Hof, you know, the book that I'm reading now is that
Breathing.
breath work
Yeah.
is not only important when you start off your day, but whenever you're kind of, you know, however you're receiving information. And we already talked about that on the other podcast, but just taking those 10 deep breaths and getting that oxygen, you know what I mean? I totally agree with that.
Mm-hmm.
This is crazy. I'm just reading these notes again. So the brain is a non-metabolic organ. Interesting. So in deep sleep, your brain takes oxygen from big muscles and sends it to the secondary organs. So if you do 3 to 6 minutes in an ice bath, the cold shock proteins, your liver dumps them into the bloodstream under extreme temperatures and scours all your blood of free radicals and basically repairs all of your organs and everything at 4 times the rate.
Wow. You could drop the bomb for that one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yes, that's why if you do those big breathing blocks in either a cold shower or an ice bath, you're just dumping cold shock proteins and oxygen all through your body. And the absence of oxygen is the presence of disease. So oxygen is something underlooked that not talked about enough.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So true.
They talk about breathing and running. They talk about breathing with meditation.
They talk about breathing in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, they talk about it in so many aspects because it's swimming. It's so, I mean, it's so important. So
Yeah.
definitely.
And they also talk about breathing. I mean, when you bring up swimming, the fact of like your brain and the, what is it, the amygdala, the lizard part of your brain. You know, I mean, and you think about swimming or you think about holding your breath underwater, that you can actually hold your breath longer than you actually think. But it's your, you know what I mean? That little lizard brain that's telling you that you can't.
Yeah. You got to take a breath.
Yeah.
I need to breathe. My lungs are going to explode.
Yeah.
But they're not. So.
And if you can tap into that and tell that, you know, that little lizard brain, hey, you know what I mean? No, like
I'm doing this.
I'm good. Like I can hold my breath for a little bit longer. You won't pass out. I mean, it's the same thing. I mean, it's the
control of the mind.
Yeah.
The power of the mind.
Power of the mind.
Right?
Yep.
Absolutely.
With oxygen and all those kind of things. And then the crazy part when you think about it is oxygen is so great for us, but then inside of your body, oxalates are, you know what I mean? Like you mentioned free radicals. Those are the worst things for your body. So it's like, you know, how we are efficient at processing oxygen is super. I mean, I think it's crazy. I think that's pretty awesome, you know, thing to talk about. Like that's great. Yeah. And I have what a free radical even is right here from the Googles. It says, in chemistry, a free radical is an atom, molecule, or ion that has at least one unpaired valence electron.
Now you're talking about electrons. And I have a whole thing here about oxygenated phosphorylation. So we're going to have to talk about that on another podcast because I don't think we're going to have time for it. But it's all about ATP and the energy cycle. And it's kind of what Justin was just talking about. And so we should do a whole another episode talking about the efficiency of like food, like burning your food, metabolism, and how you could maybe, you know, tap into some of those things to make your digestive system, metabolism more efficient. Yeah.
And I guess speaking about metabolism, is that, I mean, that's a gene, that's a trait, right?
I think it's one of the same thing that we were talking about before is like, it is, but it's also something that has to do with your lifestyle, your everyday lifestyle, what you're eating, your body composition, just as much as it does your genes. So I think that what we're talking about is like, it's on both sides, and it's so true for everything because it does have a lot to do with the genetics, but it also has a lot to do with just like the food that we talk about too, right? Genetics are so important with the animal for the quality, but so is the way that it's handled, the way that it's raised, the way that it's processed and packaged. So it's the same thing with humans is, you know, your genes are super important, but the way that you are going through your everyday life, is going to impact you greatly. Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I mean, that kind of wraps it up. The last one is just, you know, nature versus nurture, which is kind of what we just feel like
this is blindness
tied up with a little bow.
That was an interesting one for me.
Which one?
Experts now believe several dozen gene variations may raise the risk of age-related macular degeneration.
Okay. Yeah. Leading cause of blindness in people over 50 is macular degeneration.
Even though my optometrist told me that nowadays people aren't going blind really because they have the, I mean, if they're catching it, you know what I mean? You have to be getting checked. And this is probably a good segment to say, hey, make sure you're going out and you are doing these tests and get your eye exams, get all the exams that you need to be getting because they are important. But
data,
if you catch it in time, you know what I mean? They have the things available now
that's one of the positive things about, you know, the improvements and the progressions in technology and the innovations that we've had in like the medical field is that we do have a lot of benefits to the fact that, you know, we're so advanced in that sense. So that is positive. Yeah. But again, that kind of wraps it up. I mean, a lot of things, you know, are contributed to your genes, but also what you do is important as well. So I think it's a mixture of both, and you shouldn't get stuck on, you know, the fact that you're predisposed to certain, you know, you have certain traits, or that, you know, you're predisposed to certain, you know, diseases or things like that, that, you know, there's so many things that you personally can do to affect, you know, the outcome of your life, your health, your emotional and mental, you know, health as well. So, yeah.
And I think other than, you know, the traits that you spoke about that you can't really change, you just live out your lifestyle. I mean, you know, you work with what you got, and you know what I mean, you do the best that you can.
Yep. Absolutely.
Self-awareness is the game.
Definitely. And we could all learn a little something from, you know, like we said, the data, doing research, and, you know, learning more about ourselves. So
I think you
only benefit from that.
You learn the most from the data.
Yeah.
Because that's, again, like that has just literally blown my mind, because the doctors they're the ones that have the data, and then they're basically, you know, reading it, and then they're giving it back to you. You know what I mean? Whereas if you take the time to go and do the research and do your own data, I'm not saying you're a doctor, but I always tell I have family members who are in the industry who are doctors and stuff like that. And I'm like, the information that you have though, it's not necessarily, you know, behind a lock and key. It's out there. You can go and do the research that, you know, these people are giving you. So,
well, that's why I feel like the tests and the things that you can do, you know, at home, or even with the guidance of a physician or a coach or, you know, health coach and things like that, is you're getting the information. And then what you're saying, I feel like, is you can go do the research on that information, what's out there. You can read through studies, people's personal experiences, as well as second and third party data from, you know, physicians and things like that.
Yeah. And I'm specifically meaning like the different journals and like, you know, like the actual, you know, literature that's out there that people
the clinical studies.
Yeah. That people have access to. If you have access to it as well, you have the internet.
Yep. So the beauty of the Google.
That's right.
Well, we covered a lot today. And like I said, I think we'll have to come back to that whole topic that Justin was speaking on, as well as a little bit about the oxygenated phosphorylation. So maybe we'll talk about that next week. Because Simon, you're not looking too excited about that.
I was like, the oxygen, the what?
All right. Well, I mean, unless there's anything else that you guys want to cover.
Or Justin, any closing remarks?
Yeah.
No, enjoy your margaritas and have a great Mother's Day. So we'll see you next week. Stay healthy with Heartland.